Okay, we're back with part two. This is actually the final of the Blockin. Um, okay, here you see I'm adding some of that dark crimson color into the shadow. What I'm trying to do is, since that whole area seems to be recessed and set back with the darker value, I'm just going to mass everything in as close to what I see there. Not going too dark. I still have to try to get some of those, actually maybe two or three of those small flowers that are kind of reaching out and grabbing the light. You'll see that I'm going to be going back and forth. There's still some of the leaves I hadn't gotten to yesterday or the last video. And so you're seeing that I'm just adding more, just mass along there. What I'm also doing too is, as I'm working, I'm comparing what I'm placing in this shadow area and how it relates to the background, and I'm finding that the values do work, and it seems to be setting back. I got the feeling that when I did my wash-in that I really had to get that, and it was kind of hard because I didn't have the still life itself to judge. So the best thing to do is just take your palette knife and ascertain that value and try to get it correct, because now that I'm painting, it's gonna, as it starts to come together, it's gonna have this cohesive quality. And even though the background's not completely finished, it's in the right value. We will be finishing the background, and then I'll just go in and start painting it. I will be taking video, but just in small areas. To finish this painting, it would take hours, and but I'll do a couple of leaves and a few demonstrations on the flowers, just in segments. And yeah, so I'm restating some of the leaves again, just adding a little bit more tonality. My painting was still very wet. I didn't use any liquid, and the night before we had a very, very cold night, and it was freezing in my studio, which was a good thing. It's like putting the painting in the refrigerator. It was like 35 degrees outside, and it wasn't much cooler down here. Yeah, so you're seeing that I'm adding more small textures. I'm not getting specific. I'm really trying to go for the masts, or massing in certain shapes. Some are a little bit more, like here, since that's silhouetted against that bright green, yeah, I have to be a little bit more precise in my shapes here. But in the clusters of the leaves and the flowers, they can be a little bit ambiguous. Don't try to get every little leaf. Forget it. It'll just be a mess. Try to mass in first. Get the big shapes in first, and then work to the generals to the particulars, as my instructor would tell me. Okay, so so here I'm just adding a little bit more, that leaf that was kind of protruding out into the background. Also, I was looking at that, and that seems to set back there nice. So I'm happy that the background and now the still life itself is kind of gelling together. And it's just some addition of some flowers here and there, just some detail on the flowers. Now, I don't know what happens with the painting. It starts sliding over to the right. I don't know if I was moving my canvas over, or I don't know. I know I wasn't anywhere near the camera tripod. Maybe I was. I don't know. But yeah, so now I'm blocking in a little bit of the purple. As you can see, I'm not, just going for the color. I'm just really trying to get the notes down. I'm not really concerned too much with the drawing. I'd rather be, I'm really concerning myself with just the general abstraction. Again, the big forms, the big shapes, how the major shapes relate to all these um, subservient shapes, meaning like the leaves in the foreground, you know, they are distinctive. Okay, we can't fudge those. The flower in the middle, and so we have to kind of work around all the things that we don't see that aren't really quite clear. Those are sort of like supporting characters to sort of uphold the major shapes. So, but we will be going in and painting some of them, but not to the same degree as the larger flowers and leaves that are in the that are catching most of the light. So when we paint, we have to kind of understand um, what we want the viewer to see first. And we don't want to go in and paint all these little things in the shadow that don't mean anything, that really don't help the whole. Um, the shadows and the forms, I should say the forms in the shadow, um, not that they shouldn't have any importance, but they should kind of be a little bit subdued, which means down, painted, with less importance, downplay them a little bit. And you'll see when we get into like the final, that I'm still going to keep it rather on the brushy side, but the shapes will start to be more specific, especially those in the light, especially those that are very colorful. Like this cluster of flowers right here, I wanted to make sure that, actually I'm using, if you can tell, I'm using 3 different brushes, one for each value, because I really want to mask this in, and I want to use the same colors without trying to jump too much or clean my brush too often and maybe pick up the wrong color. So that's why in situations like this, and then when I do the final, I'll probably be doing the same thing with the leaves, because what will happen is I'll have the colors of the leaves already worked out. So that would mean that, like in the wash-in, yes, I pre-mixed a bunch of colors, and they, for the green, and I mixed it with my palette knife. But when I do the final, I want to make sure that I have enough of the right color. As we can see, there's greens that look a little warmer, some look cooler, some are darker. There's going to be a myriad of different greens for this painting. In the first video, you'll see that I have quite a few. There was chromium oxide, there was permanent green, there was viridian green. The shadow shapes are mostly viridian green, ultramarine blue, and burnt umber to get that deep, dark recess value. The reason why I went with blue is because that green is in the shadow has a tendency to go a little cooler. And then as you can see, like now I'm working in some of the shadows in those flower clusters. But notice that I'm just going for an abstract shape. I'm looking for the contrast now, working my way into the shadows. So what you kind of do is you have to think in terms of, you're coming out of basically you're kind of coming out of a fog or something like that, where, things get a little bit clearer as you progress. Don't try to get everything in the first pass. You'll just go crazy, and then your work will start to look too spotty, right? You always want to work as if you're working on a whole. Now, yesterday, when I did part 1 of this video, I basically concentrated on the greens because my palette was just jam-packed with green. But I was keeping in mind where the magentas would be, those purple tones would be, and just leaving them blank. When you're building a painting up, yeah, we should have had them in the beginning, but I would rather have these magentas nice and clean had I been working on them at the same time. I might have run the risk of getting some of that red a little dirty. And but as I paint, you'll probably see that, yeah, some of the reds in the shadows might get a little bit more softer, a little bit more kind of grayed down, or neutralized, I should say. Okay. And yeah, there was the addition of the highlight. Now I'm just trying to get some form back on the shelving. And you can see at some point, I think I break out the T-square. And I think that's where I'm going now. There it is. All right, so what I want to try to do here is just get that bottom rung. Obviously, I didn't do a perfect ruled line. I didn't want a perfect ruled line. I just wanted a dark undertone there. The values in the back are okay. Again, I'm going to be doing, when I do my background, I'll be pre-mixing a lot of color, and I'll be really working in some of those colors. And I'm debating whether I should put the cinder block separations in. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see what happens. Or just leave it like this. Now I'm really, just trying to get the value. I'm really not really going for any specific detail here. It's still just blocking in the large shapes. That's really all I'm concerned about right now. Noticing that I have a little bit more, there's a little bit more interest in there. There's some veins and in the wood, some grain that I have to include in there. And I'm going to go back when I start to really go in and render. Yeah, there's going to be some time taken, but here, this is my underpainting, and I really want to get a good sense of light and dark here. I don't want anything nebulous, because as I paint, a lot of this paint is going to be showing through. Okay, so not everything, not every square inch of this Blockin is going to be covered. Okay, some areas might still show through. So you have to keep that in mind as you're painting. How close are my values to the original or to my subject? And keep that always in the back of your mind. I think if you have a game plan and you know that you have to go to certain values, that kind of keeps you from going too light or too dark. By staying within the value range that you see in your subject, you really can't go wrong. But that takes some time. Do a lot of squinting. Walk away from your painting. You walk across the room. If you were doing this painting from life, yeah, first of all, I probably wouldn't be sitting down. I'd be standing up and walking back and forth. I would paint this in in comparative, where I could be standing in one spot and then just looking over. Probably what would not do this site size, because with site size you have to keep walking back and forth. If I worked on it comparatively or objectively, I could sit down and paint too, like especially when you get down to some of the details and you want to just really look and paint. Sometimes that helps a little bit. And we're getting close to the end here. Again, I don't know what had the typewriter effect. Maybe I was moving my easel over. But here I'm just refining some of the shapes. Really, really the objective here too is to get rid of all the underpainting. I don't want to see the underpainting showing through. I want to try to get everything covered so that when I paint my second layer, I won't have that that yellow popping through, because there really isn't any yellow or anything in those areas, especially in on the left side, where the photograph is covered. I think at some point I take it off just to paint in there, just to look at those whole shapes. Look, I'm just accenting a little bit more here and there. Those accents will be softened later on. They're just indications. I'm looking for contrasts too. So I'm kind of focusing in on the drawing. So here, I think that falls down in the ground any minute now. And at this point, I don't really need the photograph. I just need to see the value relationships. I've looked at it so long, I kind of know what it looks like. So sometimes it's better not to have it around too much as far as this stage of the painting, because we're really just covering. And that's what I wanted to do there. I just wanted to cover. And actually, I'm cheating. I'm looking at it on the floor. So I think we're almost done here. There we go. Yeah, so that's it. I will be back doing the background. Have a great day. Bye now.